The wind screamed, a banshee wail that tore at the very fabric of our sanity. 50 knots, gusting higher, whipping the snow into a blinding fury. We were 7 weeks into our deep drilling expedition in Antarctica, and every single one of those weeks had been a testament to human endurance, or perhaps human folly. Our mission, funded by a consortium of universities and private donors with a surprisingly deep pocket, was to retrieve ice core samples from depths previously untouched, hoping to unlock secrets of Earth's climate history. What we unlocked instead was a primal terror. My name is Dr. Elias Thorne, lead geophysicist. With me were Dr. Lena Petrova, a brilliant glaciologist whose optimism had, until recently, been a constant source of light. Dr. Kenji Tanaka, our stoic and invaluable drilling engineer, and a rotating crew of hardy technicians. We were stationed at Outpost Gamma 7, a prefabricated nightmare of corrugated steel and reinforced insulation, buried deep within the relentless white expanse of the Transantarctic Mountains. The anomaly appeared on our long-range sonar a month ago, a massive, non-geological structure buried several kilometers beneath the ice. It was too regular, too perfectly symmetrical to be natural. Initial readings were inconclusive, but the sheer size of it was enough to divert our primary objective. Climate history could wait. This was something else entirely. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," Kenji had muttered, his brow furrowed as he stared at the sonar readouts. Too precise, too artificial. Lena, ever the pragmatist, had initially dismissed it as a geological oddity, a unique rock formation. But as we refined our scans, the truth, horrifying in its implications, began to assert itself. It wasn't a formation, it was a structure. We initiated a secondary drilling operation, painstakingly slow, pushing our customized drills through kilometers of ancient ice. The deeper we went, the colder it got, not just atmospherically, but a chilling cold that seemed to permeate our very bones, a cold that wasn't registered on any thermometer. It felt old, preternaturally old. The first hint of trouble, beyond the usual mechanical failures and the constant threat of frostbite, came with the dreams. Vivid, unsettling dreams. We all had them. Lena dreamed of vast, echoing caverns filled with an unseen presence. Kenji saw himself wandering through labyrinthine corridors, carved from some impossibly dark stone. Mine were the worst. A sensation of being watched, not by eyes, but by something far more ancient, far more alien, from the deepest reaches of the cosmos. A sensation of immense, crushing weight, and the sound of something shifting, slowly, agonizingly, in the darkness. We dismissed them as the psychological toll of isolation and extreme conditions. How wrong we were. After 4 weeks of continuous drilling, we finally broke through. The drill bit, instead of hitting rock, had sunk into emptiness. The pressure sensors registered a vast void beneath the ice. The air quality sensors, usually reliable, flickered erratically, displaying unreadable values. "What the hell is down there?" One of the technicians, a young man named Marcus, had whispered, his face pale. We deployed a specialized camera probe, equipped with powerful lights and sensors. The feed came alive on the main monitor in the operations room. What we saw made our blood run cold. It was a temple. Not a ruin, not a crumbling relic, but an incredibly preserved structure, vast beyond imagination, carved from a stone so dark it seemed to absorb the light. The camera slowly panned, revealing towering pillars, impossibly smooth walls, and intricate alien carvings that seemed to writhe and shift just at the periphery of our vision. The architecture was unlike anything known to humanity. A dizzying array of non-Euclidean angles and geometries that twisted the mind just to behold. "My God," Lena breathed, her voice a fragile whisper. "It's impossible." Kenji, usually unflappable, stood frozen, his eyes glued to the screen. Who built this? How? The carvings. They were the most disturbing. They depicted monstrous tentacled entities, cyclopean beasts with multiple eyes, and winged horrors that defied all natural law. They weren't merely illustrations. They seemed to throb with a malevolent energy, as if the very stone was alive, imbued with the essence of what it depicted. And there were figures, humanoid but not human, kneeling before these unspeakable deities, their faces twisted in expressions of ecstatic terror or desperate supplication. One carving in particular drew my gaze. It showed a vast, slumbering entity, its form indistinct, but undeniably colossal, nestled within a cosmic void. Around it, smaller, equally grotesque beings seemed to orbit, as if attending to its horrific sleep. And below, a tiny, almost insignificant symbol that sent a shiver down my spine. It was the same symbol that had started appearing in my dreams, etched into the walls of those vast, dark caverns we debated for days. The risks were astronomical. The potential scientific rewards, however, were immeasurable. The allure of discovery, the intoxicating pull of the unknown, ultimately triumphed over our innate sense of dread. We would go down. We constructed a reinforced elevator shaft, battling the permafrost and the constant fear of collapse. The air in the void below was frigid, impossibly so, and carried a faint, cloying scent, metallic, ancient, and something else, something subtly organic and deeply unsettling. The first team to descend consisted of myself, Lena, and Kenji. The elevator groaned as it lowered us into the abyssal darkness. The lights on our suits cut through the gloom, revealing the colossal scale of the temple. The air was unnervingly still, devoid of the natural currents one would expect in such a massive space. The silence was absolute, a heavy, oppressive blanket that muffled even our own breathing. As our boots touched the polished, obsidian-like floor, the temperature plummeted further. Our breath plumed in icy clouds. The sheer enormity of the place was overwhelming. The walls stretched upwards into an unseen ceiling, lost in the oppressive darkness. The alien architecture twisted and turned, defying logical perception. Every shadow seemed to harbor a lurking horror. Lena, ever the scientist, was the first to speak, her voice barely a whisper. "The rock. It's not basalt. It's some kind of crystalline structure, impossibly dense." She ran a gloved hand over a smooth surface. "It feels cold, colder than the ice itself." Kenji, flashlight sweeping the vast space, pointed to a distant archway. "There's a passage. Looks like it goes deeper." And so, we pressed on. The deeper we went, the more the carvings seemed to come alive. The monstrous visages appeared to shift, their eyes following us. I felt an inexplicable pressure on my mind, a subtle hum that vibrated in my skull, a chorus of silent whispers. It was as if the very air was saturated with an ancient malevolence, a forgotten consciousness that had merely been dormant. We found what appeared to be an altar, a massive slab of the same dark crystalline material, stained with what looked like dried ancient blood. My stomach churned. This wasn't just a temple. It was a place of sacrifice. And for whom? Then, the lights flickered. Our headlamps, designed for extreme conditions, wavered, throwing dancing shadows that amplified the terror of the carvings. The temperature dropped even further, a sudden sharp plunge that made us gasp. What was that? Lena's voice was taut with fear. A sound then. A low, resonant hum, originating from deep within the temple. It wasn't a vibration from the ice or a geological tremor. It was a sound that seemed to resonate from within the very stone. A sound that spoke of immense power, of something awakening. Kenji gripped his rifle, the standard issue for polar expeditions, his knuckles white. Something's happening. We retreated, scrambling back towards the elevator, the hum growing louder, more insistent, vibrating through the floor, through our very bones. It was a sound that was both alien and ancient, a sound that bypassed the ears and went straight to the deepest, most primal parts of the brain. A sound that spoke of unspeakable, cosmic entities stirring from their eons-long slumber. We reached the elevator, heart hammering, but as Kenji fumbled with the controls, the lights died completely. We were plunged into absolute darkness, a blackness so profound it felt like a physical entity pressing in on us. The hum intensified, filling the void, a pulsating thrum that seemed to vibrate with malevolent intent. Then, a new sound, a wet, viscous slithering that echoed from the unseen depths of the temple. It was heavy, deliberate, as if something impossibly large was dragging itself across the floor. Panic seized me. "Get us up, Kenji, now!" The elevator groaned, straining against the unseen forces below. Slowly, agonizingly, we began to ascend, but the sounds followed us. The slithering, now accompanied by a low, guttural chittering that raised the hairs on my neck. The air grew thick with that cloying metallic scent, stronger now, almost suffocating. Through the gloom, a flicker, not from our lights, but from below, a faint, bioluminescent glow, pulsating with an unnatural rhythm. It was the color of decaying flesh, sickly green and sickly yellow, and it was moving towards us. "Faster!" Lena shrieked, her voice cracking with terror. The elevator shuddered, picking up speed, but the things below were faster. The light grew brighter, revealing fleeting glimpses of something. Tentacles, impossibly long and thick, glistening with some foul ichor. Cyclopean eyes that glowed with an ancient, malevolent intelligence. Massive, chitinous forms that scuttled and dragged themselves across the floor. It was the beings from the carvings, the gods, and they were awake. We burst out of the shaft and into the control room, gasping for breath, our hearts pounding like war drums. Marcus and the other technicians stared at us, their faces etched with confusion. "What the hell happened down there?" Marcus demanded. "They're awake," Kenji rasped, leaning against the console, his face ashen. "The things in the temple, they're awake." Before we could explain, a seismic tremor shook the outpost. Not an earthquake, but something far more localized, originating directly beneath us. The hum intensified, a deafening roar that vibrated through the steel floor, rattling our teeth. Alarms blared, a piercing shriek that was quickly drowned out by the escalating hum. The lights flickered and died, plunging the outpost into an oppressive darkness illuminated only by the emergency lights and the frantic flashes of our headlamps. And then the sound of tearing metal, a groan, a horrifying shriek. as if the very bedrock beneath us was being ripped apart. The floor buckled. Marcus screamed. A fissure ripped through the concrete floor of the control room, releasing a blast of that chilling, ancient air, and with it, that sickening, metallic scent. And through the widening crack, we saw it. That sickly, bioluminescent glow, much closer now. A colossal, pulsating form, emerging from the depths. It was too vast to comprehend. Its surface a shifting landscape of chitinous plates, writhing tentacles, and countless ancient eyes that stared out into the darkness. It was the slumbering entity from the carvings. It had awakened. "Run!" I screamed, but it was too late. Tentacles, thick as tree trunks, snaked through the fissures, smashing through equipment, tearing apart the outpost with terrifying ease. The hum was now a psychic scream, an agony that tore at our minds, threatening to shatter our sanity. We saw the crew, our friends, being snatched, their screams abruptly cut short. Lena, her face contorted in a mask of primal fear, grabbed my arm. "The snowcat. We have to get to the snowcat." We stumbled through the collapsing corridors, the ground heaving beneath us. The air was thick with dust and the cloying ancient stench. The sounds of destruction were deafening, rending metal, splintering wood, and the horrifying wet thud of something unimaginably massive moving just beneath the surface. We reached the hangar miraculously. The snowcat, our only hope, stood waiting, its engine idling. Kenji, somehow, had managed to make it there before us, already in the driver's seat. He looked back at us, his eyes wide with a terror I had never seen in him. "Get in," he yelled over the din. We scrambled inside, Lena fumbling with her seatbelt, her hands shaking uncontrollably. Kenji slammed the door shut and floored the accelerator. The snowcat lurched forward, crashing through the hangar doors, which were already buckling under the strain of something pressing from below. Behind us, the outpost was imploding. The ground was tearing itself apart, massive chunks of ice and rock being hurled into the air by an unseen force. The sickly glow illuminated the scene, casting grotesque shadows that danced in our peripheral vision. We sped across the snow-covered plains, the snowcat's treads biting into the frozen surface, but the hum followed us. It resonated through the very earth, a constant reminder of the unspeakable horror we had unleashed. Looking back, I saw it, rising from the devastated remains of Outpost Gamma 7. A truly monstrous form, impossibly tall, its head lost in the swirling snow. It was a silhouette of pure nightmare, its multiple limbs thrashing, its vast body pulsating with that sickly, unnatural light. It was one of the gods, fully emerged, and it was looking directly at us. "It's coming after us," Lena screamed, her voice hoarse. Kenji pushed the snowcat to its absolute limit, the engine roaring in protest. The Antarctic landscape, usually a desolate but beautiful expanse, was now a hellscape, illuminated by the monstrous glow behind us. The ground continued to tremble, sending fissures across the icy plains. Then, the snowcat hit a particularly deep crevice that had just opened up. The vehicle lurched violently, throwing us against the interior. We heard a sickening crunch. The engine sputtered, then died. Silence. A terrifying, absolute silence, broken only by our ragged breathing and the distant, ever-present hum. "No, no, no," Kenji muttered, frantically trying to restart the engine. It was useless. We were stranded, in the middle of the Antarctic wasteland, with an ancient, awakened god bearing down on us. The glowing figure was closer now, its movements slow, deliberate, each step a seismic event. We could hear the ice cracking under its immense weight, a sound like thunder. The air grew impossibly cold, stealing our breath, and that cloying metallic scent intensified, filling our mouths with the taste of rust and something else, something utterly alien and foul. Through the blizzard, we could make out more details. The shifting plates of its hide, like the scales of some cosmic serpent. The multitude of eyes, each one a swirling vortex of sickening colors, staring out at us with an intelligence so vast and alien it threatened to unravel our sanity. Tentacles, each thicker than the snowcat, lashed out, tearing at the air. Lena began to sob, a quiet, broken sound. Kenji simply stared out the window, his face a mask of despair. I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach, a paralyzing fear that transcended mere terror. This was not something we could fight. This was an ancient horror, a cosmic entity that had slumbered for eons, stirred by our arrogance, by our drills. The hum intensified, no longer just a sound, but a force, pressing down on us, trying to crush our minds. Images flashed in my mind, unbidden and horrifying. Vast, desolate landscapes of other worlds, filled with impossible geometries and the silent screams of forgotten civilizations. A sense of unfathomable age, of infinite time, of an existence beyond human comprehension. The snowcat began to tilt. The ground beneath us was giving way. The fissure we had fallen into was widening, expanding. The glowing god stood directly over us now, its massive form eclipsing the sky. The sheer scale of it was incomprehensible, a blasphemous violation of natural law. One of its colossal tentacles slowly descended, its tip glowing with that sickening light, like a monstrous luminescent finger reaching for us. I could feel its presence, not just physically, but mentally. It was probing, searching, its consciousness a vast, ancient ocean of thought that threatened to drown our fragile minds. It wasn't angry, not in a human sense. It was simply waking. And we were an inconvenience, a minor disturbance in its reawakening. The tentacle touched the snowcat, ever so gently. The metal shrieked. Then, with an almost playful ease, it began to lift us. The snowcat groaned, its structure groaning under the impossible strain. We were dangling, suspended in the air, directly beneath the monstrosity. Through the window, I saw its eyes, countless of them, swirling with cosmic indifference. They were not eyes of malice, but of ancient hunger, of a deep, primal need for sustenance. And we were, in that moment, nothing more than specks of dust, an insignificant meal for an entity beyond our wildest nightmares. Lena screamed. Kenji let out a guttural roar, a final desperate act of defiance. The last thing I saw before the world dissolved into blinding, agonizing light, and a chorus of silent screams was one of the smaller, scuttling creatures from the temple. A multi-legged horror with lamprey-like mouths, emerging from the depths of the main entity, its gaze fixed on us. Then, nothing. The research vessel Arctic Star found the remains of Outpost Gamma 7 2 weeks later, or what was left of it. A colossal crater, several kilometers wide, scarred the ice cap. Within the crater, amidst the shattered remnants of our equipment, they found traces of an unknown crystalline substance, impossibly cold and emitting a faint, sickening glow. They found no bodies, no survivors, just the whispers. The rescue team reported feeling an overwhelming sense of dread, a chilling presence that lingered in the air, a cold that seeped into their very souls. They reported strange, unsettling dreams in the following weeks. Dreams of cyclopean architecture, of ancient, slumbering entities, and a pervasive, unshakable hum that resonated deep within their minds. They closed the expedition. The official report cited an unforeseen geological event, a massive subterranean collapse. But those of us who were there, those of us who saw, know the truth. We awakened something. Something that had slept for eons beneath the ice. Something that is now awake, and it is waiting. Sometimes, when the wind howls at night, I can still hear the hum, and I know, with a terrifying certainty, that the gods we found in Antarctica are no longer confined to their ancient temple. They are out there, under the ice, stirring, listening, and slowly, irrevocably coming. They are patient. They have eternity. And we, humanity, are merely the latest curiosity to stumble upon their slumber. A small, insignificant meal, swallowed by the vast, cold maw of an awakened universe.